Welcome everyone to a current affairs roundup session of environment topics powered by Amrita IAS Academy. I am 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐫, faculty Amrita IAS Academy. Let's begin. Through this initiative, we are going to cover the weekly current affairs comprehensively. Today, we are going to check out the last week environment topics. Let's dwell into the news in detail. The first news is from The Hindu, June 30th. Let's read out the title. UN report flags $800 billion climate fund gap in Asia Pacific, calls for synergistic action. So this is about an UN report. So the UN report flags $800 billion climate finance gap in Asia Pacific. So which is this report is the first thing that you have to check out. Which is this report? So the report is titled Asia Pacific Synergies Report, Advancing Synergistic Solutions to the Triple Planetary Crisis and SDGs. The report is really important. The factual content, we are going to check out what are the facts which are required from this report. So the first thing that you have to check out is who published this report. Who published this report? This is a report published by UNESCAP. So we have to see what UNESCAP is. So we are going to see the relevance of this report. Okay, so this is relevant for your mains paper as well as for your prelims paper and can be utilized for your interview stage preparation. So mains paper, why is it relevant? Of course, it's an environment ecology topic related to climate change, and also disaster management topics also can be asked from this paper. And also related to essay, climate justice and sustainable development topics can be linked with this report. And for prelims also, many facts from this specific report is relevant. First of all, you have to see what UNESCAP is. The organization which published this report, UNESCAP. They you have to see what is UNESCAP. Then you have to see what is India Cooling Action Plan. India Cooling Action Plan find a mention. The ICAP finds a mention in this report. You have to see the objectives of ICAP. Then triple planetary crisis. Reading out the title itself, the title of this report says Advancing Synergistic Solution to the Triple Planetary Crisis and SDGs. Of course, SDGs, everybody might know SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. You might be knowing all the Sustainable Development Goals. But the thing that you have to notice here is what is Triple Planetary Crisis? Triple Planetary Crisis. What is it? What do you mean by triple planetary crisis? Important for your prelims, and this is a keyword that can be utilized for your mains as well. So let's check out the details. First of all, we will be looking at the facts required for your prelims point of view. Now we have to first see what is UNESCAP. UNESCAP. First you have to know what UNESCAP is. UNESCAP, the full form is important. You have to know you have to first see the expansion of UNESCAP. United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UNESCAP. It is Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, not Environment and Social Commission. That is the thing that you have to remember first. Okay, this is a regional commission of the United Nations for the Asia and Pacific region. Works to promote economic and social development, as the name of the organization, name of the commission suggests. It promotes economic and social development through regional cooperation. The key facts related to UNESCAP should be noted. It was established in the year 1947. So UN was formed in the year 1945, that we all know, right? But UNESCAP was formed in the year 1947 after 2 years of establishment of UN. The initial name was 𝐸𝐞𝐿, Economic Commission for Asia and Far East. That was the name of the UNESCAP. Initially it was formed in the year 1947, and later in 1974 it was named UNESCAP, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, and headquarters right now is situated in Bangkok. It has got 53 members including 9 associate members, and note that India is a founding member of UNESCAP. And the other important thing that you have to note is that it is not an agency of UN. It is not an agency of UN. UNESCO and WHO are agencies of UN, and there are organs of UN as well. This is not an agency of UN. That is the thing that you have to note. Let's move on to the next important prelims point about UNESCAP. Everybody know when Asian Development was formed. You might be knowing the facts about Asian Development Bank, right? And Asian Development Bank was formed in the year 1966. And the reason for its formulation, it was conceived at a ministerial conference on the Asian Economic Cooperation organized by 𝐸𝐴, and that is why one of the notable initiatives of UN-SCAP include Asian Development Bank. So, Asian Development Bank is one of the very notable initiative of UN-SCAP. Okay, let's check out the next important prelims pointer from this article. India Cooling Action Plan. So, it's a 20-year national strategy for sustainable cooling. This India Cooling Action Plan find a mention in this report. That is why we are discussing about India Cooling Action Plan when we are discussing about this report. India's 20-year national strategy for sustainable cooling, launched in the year 2019 by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So, the importance of this India Action Cooling Plan is that it aims to reduce cooling demand. Obviously, that is from the name itself, it aims to improve the cooling efficiency as well, and reduce refrigerant demand and promote climate friendly refrigerants and develop the skilled workforce. So, these are the 5 objectives which find a mention about the India Cooling Action Plan. Now, let's move on to the next topic, which is very, very important for your prelims and can be utilized for your mains or enriching your mains answers as well, which is triple planetary crisis. What do you mean by triple planetary crisis? It's a crisis, 3-phase crisis. So, this is a word coined and promoted by United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. It refers to the 3 interconnected global environmental crises of climate change, biodiversity and pollution. So, what do you mean by triple planetary crisis? It refers to 3 interconnected global environmental crises: climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution. So, these are the 3 interconnected global environmental crises which is referred to as triple planetary crisis. Very, 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 very important. This triple planetary crisis, this phrase can be utilized for your answer enrichment in mains and can be asked for prelims also. Please note this. Okay. For example, this understand that the triple planetary crisis, why are we called a triple planetary crisis? Because these are interconnected. These crises reinforce one another. That is why we call it triple planetary crisis. Okay. So, for example, the climate change can cause for forest fire. You can guess that, right? Climate change can cause for forest fire. So, forest fire can cause pollution, and this forest fire will cause for habitat loss also. Habitat loss, forest fire will essentially cause for loss of forest. Suppose a forest fire happens in Western Ghats, a forest patch will be gone. It will cause for habitat loss, and that in turn, what does it mean? Reduced carbon sink. A forest loss means it causes a reduction in carbon sink, and that in turn will cause for more climate change, and that is why it is interconnected. Climate change, habitat loss and pollution are interconnected, and that is meant by triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution. And you have to see an article related to triple planetary crisis from UNFCCC website, UNFCCC website. This article is really, really important because this article essentially explains what is triple planetary crisis. So, what is triple planetary crisis is given here. The link to the article is given in the slide. You can download the PPT from the description of this video. Okay. So, what is triple planetary crisis is asked here. Then the next question addressed here is what is being done to tackle it. This is the main question that you can expect. What is triple planetary crisis and what is being done to tackle it? So, the answer for this question is actually given here by UNFCCC itself, this website itself. So, what is being done to tackle it? You have to understand that various conventions and protocols are mentioned here where triple planetary crisis are intended to tackle. Then you have to address in the question by writing out or picking out each conventions mentioned in this article. So, that's all about triple planetary crisis. Let's move on to next topic. Next topic is related to climate finance. So, basically by climate finance you have to understand that financial resources provided to support anything: climate mitigation, climate adaptation, loss and damage, capacity building, technology transfer, anything can be termed as climate finance. So, various climate finance mechanisms are important as far as prelims is concerned and can be important for your mains also. So, various climate finance mechanisms are given here. Green Climate Fund is one of the important mechanism that you have to understand. Green Climate Fund, Global Environmental Facility, Adaptation Fund, Multilateral Development Boards, Carbon Markets. Example, these are various climate finance mechanism. In this class, we are gonna see what is Green Climate Fund and what is Global Environmental Facility. So, Green Climate Fund was established in the year 2010 by UNFCCC. UNFCCC is the Framework Convention on Climate Change of UN, and GCF is the operating entity of financial mechanism of UNFCCC. Actually, the financial mechanism of UNFCCC is not Green Climate Fund. It is Global Environmental Facility. And GCF is the operating entity of Global Environmental Facility. So, we will have to see what Global Environmental Facility is. First of all, we are gonna look into that. Okay. So, Green Climate Fund is a fund which supports developing countries in achieving their climate ambitions and play a key role in implementing Paris Agreement. So, Paris Agreement was finalized in 2016, and later on many additions were added as a part of Paris Agreement. Understand that this Paris Agreement is actually funded by the Green Climate Fund, and Green Climate Fund is the operating entity, not the financial mechanism of UNFCCC. The financial mechanism of UNFCCC is Global Environmental Facility. So, we have to look into what is Global Environmental Facilities. So, Global Environmental Facility is actually a fund of funds, is a family of funds for environment. So, it is a financial mechanism of 6 multilateral conventions including UNFCCC. Let us check what are the other conventions where the GEF is acting as the financial mechanism. So, everybody might be, so you should be having an idea about 1992 Earth Summit. As a part of Earth Summit, 3 conventions were formulated. 2 conventions came in that year itself. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Convention on Biological Diversity was formulated in 1992 itself, and the idea for one more convention was formulated in 1992 in UN Earth Summit. That convention was UN Convention on Compact Desertification, which was finalized in the year 1994. Okay. Now, these are the 3 conventions, these are the 3 sister conventions of UN Earth Summit, and these 3 conventions, the financial mechanism is the same, which is Global Environmental Facility, and other 3 conventions also are part of this Global Environmental Facility, where the Global Environmental Facility is actually the financial mechanism of these conventions. So, total 6 conventions are the 3 Earth Summit sister conventions. Then 3 other conventions are Minamata Conventions on Mercury, Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutant, and Agreement on Marine Biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. So, these are the 6 conventions where Global Environmental Facility is acting as the financial mechanism. So, right now there are 186 participant countries. Right now there are 186 participants countries under Global Environmental Facility, and 2300 plus projects are going on in 149 countries. So, these are facts which can be utilized for enriching your answer. If question related Global Environmental Facility is asked, these are various statistics that can be used to enrich your mains answer. Okay, and importantly, more than 1/3 of active projects and programs support small island developing states and least developed countries. Important, very, very important. This fact can be utilized for enriching your mains answer rating. The Global Environmental Facility acting as a financial mechanism for 6 conventions, the statistics related to Global Environmental Facility can be utilized to enrich your answer rating. Enriching your answer. Okay. More than 1/3 of the active projects and programs support small island developed states and least developed countries. Yes, that's all about Global Environmental Facility. And one liner for prelims revision is given here. So, these one liners are taken from the news article related to environment news article. This UN report flags $800 billion climate fund gap in Asia Pacific. We have not looked into the mains fact till now. What this report says, we have not looked into that. We have seen only the prelims pointers from this till now. We are gonna see the mains pointers also. The prelims one-liners are given here. UNSCAP. What is UNSCAP? UN Regional Commission Asia Pacific, which is headquartered in Bangkok, which was founded in the year 1947 as 𝐬𝐞𝐿, and India was a founding member. It is not an UN agency. 𝐼CAP, India's long-term sustainable cooling strategy, formulated in 2019, and 20-year strategy, which are the various action plans coming under 𝐼CAP. You should go and check out. NAPCC, this also find we have not seen the details of National Action Plan on Climate Change. Understand that it was launched in 2008 as 8th National Mission, National Action Plan on Climate Change. If we are to discuss the National Action Plan on Climate Change, it will take a 30-hour plus session. So that's why we are not going to discuss in detail about National Action Plan on Climate Change. We will check out the details about National Action Plan on Climate Change on a later class. Now, triple planetary crisis. Climate change plus biodiversity loss versus pollution. This is meant by triple planetary crisis. And related to climate finance, we have seen imported climate finance mechanism as well. Now we are gonna check out the relevance of this article for mains. Why this news is important? Why this report is important? This report says that UN report flags $800 billion climate fund gap in Asia Pacific. Okay, so the report highlights that the developing countries in Asia Pacific require around $800 billion annually. This value is important. This value can be utilized for enriching your mains answer related to environment topic, related to climate change topic. What is the financing required by the developing countries in Asia Pacific region? What is the financial? $800 billion annually to meet climate mitigation and adaptation goals. But currently financial flows fall far short of this requirement. That is why this report is important. This report published by UNSCAP. What does it say? $800 billion annually is the requirement for climate mitigation and adaptation goals by the Asia Pacific developing countries, but it is not being done. And it argues that isolated sectoral policies are inadequate and recommends synergistic action to simultaneously address climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and sustainable development. To address the triple planetary crisis, what we have to do? We have to have a synergistic action. Synergistic action is the key word here. So we are going to see, first we are going to see what do you mean by synergistic action. For many of you, this synergistic action, this phrase might be new. So you have to have an idea, clear idea about the phrase synergistic action. So instead of implementing separate programs, for example, energy, forest, public health, agriculture, urban planning, the report recommends integrated planning, and this integrated planning is what do you mean by synergistic action. For example, suppose we have an AC in this room, air conditioning facility in this room where I am taking this video from. So instead of merely promoting air conditioners, the government should simultaneously promote energy cooling efficiency. So this AC is having 3-star or 5-star rating. The energy cooling efficiency is being promoted. Okay. Renewable electricity. Right now where I am taking this class from, this Amrita IAS Academy is running on solar energy. So renewable electricity is being utilized. Then heat action plan, green building, public health preparedness. All these topics are actually really integrated, right? Heat action plan can cause for public health preparedness. Green buildings are included in heat action plan. So all these energy efficiency cooling, renewable electricity, heat action plans, green building, public health preparedness, all these are integrated projects, and that is what is meant by synergistic action. Not isolated action programs, but integrated action programs in order to bring in integrated action program. So this report actually praises about a project in India, and that project is called India Cooling Action Plan. So this report says that we should have synergistic action plan to address this triple planetary crisis. And what are these triple planetary crises? climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution. In order to address the triple planetary crisis, we have to have synergistic action plan. And this report put forward with an example from India. That example is India's cooling action plan. This cooling action plan was formulated in the year 2019. This is a 20-year long plan, 20-year long-term plan where public health, labor productivity, climate adaptation, energy efficiency, all are addressed. All these topics are addressed, and that is why this report praises India's cooling action plan. Okay, so the next part of this report says that climate finance is a major challenge. Right now, $800 billion dollars are required every year for climate mitigation and adaptation action in Asia and Pacific region. And this climate finance is a major challenge. That is what this report says. And because of several reasons. What are these several reasons is really important. This report says that huge investments are required. Why? In developed countries, renewable energy projects, resilient infrastructure projects, and disaster management, agriculture and adaptation projects require huge investment, and that is one of the reason. That is one of the major reason why the financing climate project is a challenge. And the second important thing is that many of the countries in Asia Pacific region are having limited domestic resources. Many of them are facing fiscal deficits. For example, India is having a huge fiscal deficit, and many carry high debt burdens and also face competing developmental priorities. Many a times the climate, the sustainable development part is being not focused, and because of the developmental priorities, the climate financing thing is a major challenge. And the third thing is that the developed countries' commitments are being not all satisfied. The development countries says that they will fund these projects, they will finance various projects in developing countries, but many a times because of various reasons, because of wars, because of economic instability, because of political instability, the development countries' commitments are not being fulfilled. And fourth reason is that high cost of capital incurred by the developing countries. The capital requirements, there is definitely capital required for development projects, sustainable development projects, be it any development project, capital is required, and many a times this is financed by various multilateral banks. And if multilateral banks are not financing these projects, various other private entities are financing this project, various countries are financing various projects, but the cost of capital is high for many a times these developing countries. That is the fourth challenge faced in terms of climate financing. And the fifth challenge is weak private investment. Long gestation period, policy uncertainty, limited profitability, war, political instability, all cause for weak private investment. These are the 5 reasons why climate finance is a major challenge. What are the reasons? Huge investment requirement, limited domestic resource, developed countries' commitments are not fulfilled, high cost of capital, and weak private investments. So these are the 5 major climate finance challenges. Let's check out the challenges faced by India specifically. India must simultaneously eradicate poverty, that is definitely there, ensure energy security, industrialize, meet net zero target by 2070, that is the national target, protect biodiversity, create climate resilient infrastructure, and all this has to be done with our various challenges. So you have to add the various challenges here. These are not the only challenges faced by India together with financing challenges. Okay, so this requires substantial climate financing, and what has to be done? What has to be done is the next thing, and this report also recommends the things that has to be done, and this recommendation is important because citing reports for your means can improve your answer, can definitely improve your answer, can fetch you more marks. So this report recommends integrated planning where interministerial collaborative projects are projects should be focused. Avoid ministry-wise isolated scheme is what this report says. Innovating financing has to be done. Innovating finance, public-private partnership, green bonds. So these are various innovative projects, then municipal green bonds can also be done. Municipal bonds, municipal bodies can issue green bonds. So various innovative financing technique, carbon trading, various new trading methods for carbon can be incorporated. Then the next thing is that nature-based solution should be integrated. And fourth thing, mainstreaming climate into develop. And fifth, strengthening international cooperation. So this should be the all answers that all answers way forward are required. Okay, strengthening international collaboration, strengthening state interstate collaboration can be written in your answer. Okay, then these are the key words that you should add in your notes. Climate justice, triple planetary crisis. What is triple planetary crisis? What are the things that are being done to address triple planetary crisis? I have given the link of the article by UNFCCC in the material. Synergistic governance. What do we mean by synergistic governance? Nature-based solution. What are the nature-based solution? Whole of government approach, climate resilient development, green growth, just transition. These are all value addition terms, keywords that can enrich your mains answer and fetch you more marks. Okay, so that's all about this topic. Let's move on to another news article and similar article related to climate finance itself. This is an article which appeared in Hindu on July 2. World Bank scraps climate finance target after US criticism is the news. So let's delve into the details of this news. So the news article says that the World Bank has removed its target of allocating 45% of its annual lending to climate related projects following opposition from United States. United States is the largest shareholder of World Bank. You have to know that United States, the shareholding is around 15.5 to 15.6 is the shareholding of United States, the largest. The second largest is Japan, which is actually has got only 50% of the share of United States, which is coming around 7.9%, where US share is coming around 15.6. United States, Japan, China, Germany, United Kingdom. So these are the 5 major shareholders of IRDB or World Bank. Okay, so understand that because US is the largest shareholder, it has got significant say in their decision making. And since the World Bank has removed its target of allocating 45% of its annual lending to climate related projects, we are going to see that in detail. What is the new change? However, it has retained and extended its climate change action plan. So you have to see what climate change action plan is. What is meant by climate change action plan? So the relevance of this article, obviously it's relevant for GS paper 3 environment topic, where climate change, sustainable development and climate finance find a major mention. And for prelims also this is really relevant. You have to know what World Bank is, what are its various things, what do you mean by climate finance, what do you mean by climate change action plan, what are the multilateral development banks, and what do you mean by new collective quantified goals. New collective quantified goals find a mention in this news article. That is why we have to see this. Okay, let's first find out what do you mean by climate change action plan, because this news article says it has retained and extended its climate change action plan. The World Bank has retained and extended its climate change action plan. So climate change action plan is a action plan formulated by the World Bank. So World Bank strategic framework to, what do we mean by climate change action plan? It's not India climate change action plan, it's not national climate change action plan. National climate change action plan is that is part of the 8 mission coming under the, you have to go and check out that. Okay, which are the 8 missions. So you have to see 8 missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change, NAPCC. That is different. We are not talking about National Action Plan on Climate Change. There are 8 missions coming under National Action Plan on Climate Change. This was formulated in 2008. This is a national mission. We are not talking about that. This is Climate Change Action Plan is formulated by World Bank. It's the strategic framework. It's the strategic framework formulated by World Bank to increase climate related financing, support mitigation and adaptation, and integrate climate consideration into developmental projects. So World Bank, what is the function of World Bank? World Bank give fund to majorly developing and underdeveloped countries for developmental activities. So here climate change action plan is a World Bank strategic framework to increase climate related financing, support mitigation and adaptation, and integrate climate consideration into developmental projects. And that is different from National Action Plan on Climate Change. You have to go and check out what is National Action Plan on Climate Change and what are the 8 missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change. Okay, so understand that following the Paris Agreement. So Paris Agreement was finalized in the year 2016, and following that the World Bank increased its focus on financing climate mitigation and adaptation. And under Climate Change Action Plan, it committed to allocate 35% of its finance to climate projects in the 2021-2025 period. 2021-2025 period, the World Bank under the Climate Change Action Plan has decided to allocate 35% of the finance to climate projects. This decision was done after Paris Climate Summit. Later, this was raised to 45% of annual lending as climate co-benefits. So here climate co-benefit is a keyword that you have to understand. We will check out what is climate co-benefit. So what do you mean by climate co-benefit? So climate co-benefit are positive climate outcomes generated by developmental projects. For example, we have seen 𝐼𝐾𝐴P, okay, and for example here solar power plant provides electricity and reduces greenhouse gas emission. Understand that solar power plants generate electricity. Electricity is generated. For example, here solar panels are there in Amrita IAS Academy, and that generates electricity. And not only that generates electricity, obviously it reduces greenhouse gas emission, and that is how that is meant by climate co-benefit, because development part also is there and climate part also is there. So positive climate outcome generated by development project. One example is that. Second example, climate resilient roads improve connectivity and withstand extreme weather. Or for example, mangrove reforestation project protects biodiversity, stores carbon and reduces coastal flooding. So reducing coastal flooding is a developmental part of that, and increasing biodiversity, stores carbon is the climate part of that. Got it? So that is meant by climate co-benefit. So the climate co-benefit here, understand that under the Climate Change Action Plan, the World Bank raises its funding to 45% annually as lending to climate co-benefit, and this was extended, and the bank exceeds this target in financial year 2025 with 48% of lending delivering to climate co-benefit. All these can be please note these stats, okay, please note these stats. These stats can be utilized for your mains. So World Bank initially decided 35% to be spent in the 2020-21-2025 period, and later it was increased to 45%, and in financial year 2025 it came to be around 48%. This stats is important. And what is the change that has happened now? So earlier it was decided to give 45%, and in 2025 it came to be around 48%. World Bank spent around 48% on climate co-benefit project, and quantitative benchmark for measuring climate commitment was there, 45% was there. But now this has been revoked. No quantitative benchmark is there, no fixed percentage is there. 45% has not been reduced. Actually, no fixed percentage is there. That is the change that was proposed by the US, and the World Bank agreed to that. Okay, greater emphasis on developmental outcome rather than spending quotas. Earlier there were 45% spending quota, and right now US has told that no, we should not do that. We have to emphasize on developmental outcomes, and World Bank agreed to that. And climate investments will continue where they align with the client country's priorities. And finally, understand that this reflects the shift from input based metrics, so how much money is spent, to outcome based metrics, what impact does the project achieve. So it has moved away from quantitative benchmark to qualitative benchmark. One has to say that. And why did US oppose this? That is the next question you should answer. The US agreed that fixed climate spending targets, we had actually argued that the fixed climate spending targets distorted developmental priorities, limit flexibility in lending. So you have thought that, okay, now it is fixed to 45%. What if we have to spend 50 or 60%? So flexibility is not there. You have to make it flexible. So this is what you was told. Okay. And the third point is that divert resources from poverty reduction and economic growth. So World Bank is functioning to alleviate poverty. One of the functions of World Bank is to fund those countries to alleviate poverty, poverty alleviation projects. And US says that focusing more on climate change itself is actually diverting resources from poverty reduction and economic growth. That is one of the argument put forward by USA. Finally, it restricts investment in conventional energy, including fossil fuel, new technologies which actually can improve fossil fuel technology. We are not focusing on that. That is one of the arguments put forward by US. And as the largest shareholder, this significantly influenced the World Bank policy, and World Bank has moved away from the 45% policy. So in the year 2025, it has spent around 48% on climate financing. Now let's see what will happen in the future. Okay, let's see whether it will be for good or bad. So why is this decision significant? This can have a significant impact on global climate finance, because countries like India require. So we are aiming to become net zero emitter by 2070, and we need funding from multilateral banks like World Bank to achieve this target, and this can have an impact, is what you have to write. Impact on global climate finance is one of the first. That is the major impact. Okay, second one, accountability concern is there, because earlier there was a minimum target of 45% to be spent on climate financing, climate action plan. Now here there are no fixed targets. Fixed targets are easier to monitor actually, and easier to compare across year, and improve institutional accountability as well. The World Bank accountability should have been there. Okay, we have not spent 45%, we have to spend 45%. That accountability was there, evident from a single number. Right now that is not going to happen. It has moved away from this quantitative benchmark to more qualitative benchmark. Okay, now shift in global priorities also should be, you should see that shift in global priorities as well. The decision illustrate the growing tension between climate action, poverty reduction, energy security, and geopolitical interest. So geopolitics has played a significant role in this, and energy security is also a major concern when we are focusing on climate change and related projects itself. This energy security, because recent geopolitical tensions has caused for this. Okay, now let's move on to the last topic that you have to know, which is new collective quantified goals. So at COP29, countries adopted the new collective quantified goals, NCQG, aiming to mobilize at least $1.3 trillion annually by 2035 from all sources for developing countries. What do you mean by new collective quantified goals? New collective quantified goals also finds a mention in this news article. That is why we are seeing this. Okay, at COP29, countries adopted the NCQG, aiming to mobilize at least $1.3 trillion. It's 1.3 trillion annually by 2035 from all sources for developing countries. So multilateral development banks, including World Bank, are expected to play a central role in achieving this target. So a retreat by this World Bank from their 45% initially concerned 45% target is actually more challenging. Make this new collective quantified goal more challenging, because from all sources for developing countries is what is being mentioned here. At least 1.3 trillion annually by 2035 from all sources. So World Bank moving away from their 45% fixed target might be a challenge for achieving this new collective quantified goal. That is also one of the things that you should write in your answer. Okay, that is one of the major challenges. Okay, now we have seen two news articles from last week. Two news articles related to environment topics are climate related financing, and first one is about a UN report by NSCAP, which flags that $800 billion climate fund gap in Asia Pacific is there and call for synergistic action. The second article is about World Bank, which scraps climate finance targets after the US criticism. So both these articles are really important for your prelims and for mains, and can be important for your interview stage preparation as well. Please look into the stats which are being mentioned in these articles. Hope this class was really useful for you. We'll meet next week. Thank you.
Amrita IAS Academy.